That was John 10, 9 and 10. Everybody sees the whole connection with the whole door concept, right? So now back in Colossians 4 and 3. Withal praying also for us that God would open unto us a door of utterance to speak the mystery of Christ, right? Which I am also in bonds. So he in a sense is a prisoner of Christ. You read about Paul referring to himself as a prisoner of Christ. You're reading other different letters, right? That's what it means when he says, for I'm also in bounds. Because you're always going to be slave to one and free to the other, right? If you're free of Christ, I'm sorry, if you're a slave to Christ, that means that you're free from the world, the bonds of the world, which is sin, which is death. But now, if you're a slave to the world, that means you're free from the bonds of Christ, which is what? Salvation, everlasting life. So, you want to be a prisoner unto the right force, right? You want to be a servant, right, or a righteous servant before the Most High. That's where you get the name Obadiah from. It comes from the Hebrew Obadiah, right, which means servant of Yahweh. So now it says in verse 4 now, that I may make it manifest as I ought to speak. Walk in wisdom toward them that are without, redeeming the time. Right? So be that example, right? Making sure that you have all holy conversation and godliness, like Peter said in his letters, right? When you do that, you walk in wisdom. When you read the scriptures and you read the word conversation, in today's times, conversation more so is focused in on just how you speak. When you actually go into conversation, you go more into the archaic definition. Conversation actually has a wider scope. Conversation goes into pretty much all your conduct altogether, right? The way that you go about carrying yourself, the way that you go about doing your everyday activities, right? Whether it be mopping the floor, sweeping, driving to work, taking out the trash, what have you, right? Going to the store, like getting grocery shopping, like all the things you do, the same thing that people in the world do, but when you do it, you're doing it for in a righteous frame of mind. It's going to have you're going to give out that different vibe to where things you would do normally will catch certain people's attention, right? Just the way that you carry yourself, the way that you look, the look in your eyes, right? The way you stand up, the way you walk, and the way you step. All these things going into you walking according to wisdom. It's going to give off a certain rapport. I've heard different brothers say where a brother just be in the store, talking to his son, talking to him, instructing him in righteousness, and then a person come up to him and just be like, yeah, man, it's a beautiful thing just to see how you and your son deal, man. It's just wonderful, man. What's your name? Like people like come up to a man just by him having a conversation with his son, just out in a public setting. So walking in wisdom goes a long way. It's not always just out there teaching the word. That's definitely part of it. But now when we apply that word to our lives and walk according to the word, that's a big part of it as well, right? And just as far as just a good thing, as far as just going into the practicality of the scriptures, how we can learn from the scriptures and use the knowledge in the Bible for day-to-day stuff. Let's read this real quick. Going into how a man's walk tells a whole bunch about how he is. We're going to go to Ecclesiasticus. Ecclesiasticus, the 28th chapter. Wait a minute. Just give me 1 second. I know it's it's the last verse in a particular chapter in Ecclesiasticus. I think it's chapter 20. Oh, here we go. Ecclesiasticus 19 in verse 30. Ecclesiasticus 19 and 30 to link up with what we're reading here in Colossians 4 and 5. Once again, Ecclesiasticus 19 and 30. Ecclesiasticus being in the Apocrypha. So now it says in Ecclesiasticus 19 and 30, it says, a man's attire, referring to his clothes, right? And excessive laughter, right? You probably come across different brothers who just always laughing, always cracking up, right? Not saying you can't laugh, have a good time, but now it's just talking about someone who's always laughing at every single thing, to where it's just like, what's wrong with this dude, right? It says, and gait. A gait, and I see your hand, Brother Malcolm. It says, and gait. A gait refers to what? Your walk or your step, right? The way that you walk. Some Some brothers may have like a, like a lean they do where they kind of bop to the side every time they step on their right foot, right? Or a certain brother or a certain man you may see may always be walking fast, or certain people you may see walking with like their head down all the time, right? All these things tell a good portion about that person and their mind state, right? What they're dealing with. It says, a man's attire, excessive laughter, and gait show what he is, right? So when you read about walking in wisdom, when you walk in wisdom, you're going to be dressed in a certain way, right? You're not going to be laughing at any old thing or just smiling every time somebody says something funny or laughing like a buffoon, right? We know the image that's being put out there is that Israel, when it comes to their clothes, it's just, oh man, look at that, his underwear always showing. Look at this big white tee, right? Look at him showing off his box underwear all the time. Look at him with all his gold around his neck and all the gold in his teeth, right? A man's attire, excessive laughter. Look at these Negroes always laughing, right? And gait show what he is, the way they walk, right? Walking, like Willie Hardin, like they came out of prison, right? In some cases that's the case. In other cases, just a lot of Israel just putting on the front as if that hard, it's that and the third. But then the minute the cop shows up, they can't even say a word. They can't carry on a regular conversation they were having with their brother, trying to impress him with their hardness and how they shout at the club and blah blah blah. So it says, a man's attire, excessive laughter, and gait show what he is, right? So now if you're dealing with wisdom, you're going to walk a certain way, you're going to dress a certain way, you're going to put up a certain vibe, just because you know better, right? People are going to recognize that. I wouldn't be surprised you brothers, got approached on that wise already, where, you're dealing with brothers, they may come correct, or you might see a brother be like, oh, what's going on, man, what's going on? It's just like, what's up? What's the big deal? It's kind of like they're on that whole, not kiss your behind, so to speak, but it's just like, they just see something in you where it's just like, oh man, he knows what's going on. Like, it's just a weird thing. Like, they haven't talked to you, but just been looking at you, they have a certain reaction they give. But it's the wisdom that came upon you, or the wisdom that's on you as far as you're dealing with the Most High in Christ. Or even with sisters sometimes, right? They may even come correct now where it's just like they know they can't do the same thing with you as far as, leaning over to show their cleavage or, trying to get your attention because, you'll peep her, right? And say, hey, how you doing? But now a man of wisdom is not going to be, you can look her right in the eye and be like, how you doing, ma'am? How you doing, sis? And when she sees that, she's going to be like, what's wrong with him, right? Because every other guy is just, like... So, dealing in wisdom, right? It really makes you into a man. The man that the Most High intended you to be. To where you're going to demand respect. You're going to command respect from your brothers and your sisters. To where they're going to look to you for advice on certain things. Not even knowing without you even saying a word. All because why? You're walking in wisdom.
Oh, no.
Good? Okay. So that was Ecclesiasticus 19 and 30. I got a funny story to tell you guys, but we'll probably do it after the service. Just kind of thinking about the scripture as far as the experience I had on the job, as far as the whole thing with the walking in wisdom. But now this is Colossians 4 and 5. I'll read it again. Walk in wisdom toward them that are without, redeeming the time. Right? So be an example to those that are without what? The knowledge of this truth. Right? Redeeming the time, meaning what? Making use of the time to be your brother's keeper. To teach your brother the truth if he doesn't know it. Like it says in Jeremiah 31 where it says, each man shall no longer turn to his neighbor saying, know the Lord. Right? It says in verse 6 now, let your speech be always with grace, seasoned with salt, that you may know how you ought to answer every man. Right? So allow your words to be sweet to the ear. Right? Or I should say in this case, I say salt to the ear, but salt, we know salt, you put it on food to give it flavor. So now allow your words to have flavor and to be, a tasty treat, so to speak, in the ears of your brothers and sisters when you speak, when you say certain things. Right? And then when men have certain questions about things, you can go into it and address it accordingly so they can go, oh, okay. Alright, cool. I like that. Or, yeah, okay, that makes a lot of sense. I'm going to read up on that myself and do more research into that. But thanks for answering my question, brother. Right? And it says in verse 7 now, all my state shall Tychus declare unto you, who is a beloved brother and a faithful minister and fellow servant in the Lord. Right? So now what Paul's going into here as far as this letter, because this is going towards the end of the chapter. Right? This last chapter is pretty much going into like, kind of final words, final advice as far as how to be